Good evening, and welcome to this edition of Conversations. This evening, you're in for a good time with my guest, Mr. Leopole James, president of the Swaliga Grassroots Movement. And this evening, we're going to be touching on St. Martin politics and several other issues that are concern to the people. Mr. James, good evening and welcome to Conversations.
Yes, thank you very much for having me. And I think you have the wrong James here.
Why do I have the wrong James?
No, you're talking about James, who's president of the Swaliga Grassroots Movement. That's not this James.
Oh, you are who? The original grassroots movement James.
Okay, now you're talking.
Okay.
Right? Anyhow, thank you very much for inviting me again and for properly addressing me.
Okay, Mr. James.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Grassroots is the thing going around right now, right?
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
It's
a very good thing because it means people are becoming very conscious, and the term grassroots is becoming very coveted, and that's good. I have no problem with that whatsoever. But I happen to be the president and the founder of the St. Martin Grassroots People Movement, not of the Swaliga Grassroots Movement.
Okay.
That is not my honor.
That's not your honor.
That's not my honor.
Have me apologated, Mr. James, for wrongly identifying
you're young. You're still young. You have a long way to go. But,
okay.
You're doing a good job so far.
Okay. Thank you for forgiving me.
Okay. Hey, you got a big heart.
Okay. Mr. James, politics, elections, swearing in, breaking up government. That's the big thing on the Dutch side of the island.
Intrigue.
But first, before we start, there is a lot of going around about MP Christopher Emmanuel.
Okay.
The statement he made and stuff. And can you elaborate more? Or can you just give us a little...
Throw some oil on the fire.
Throw some oil on the fire. We're not here to go easy this evening.
Well, I'm not sure if the fire needs more oil, actually, right? Perhaps we need, to extinguish the fire. Mm-hmm. But I'm glad you bring up the name of Christopher Emmanuel, and because I wanted to bring up his name too. Mm-hmm. Not perhaps in the same context as you, intend to do, but I want to bring up Christopher's name, and commend him, mm-hmm. and congratulate him, and express a sense of pride and hope that, St. Martiners can see their dream come true, because we all know where Chris comes from, Chris has been a very outspoken activist.
Yes, for very
which is not a very easy and popular
thing
to do, especially not for a young guy. He's a very young guy, and he has been outspoken, from day one, actually. And as president of the St. Martin Grassroots Movement, we can only commend him because it gives hope to other activists as well, And I think, too, that I know Chris personally, and I know Chris is a very, very strong young man. He is absolutely not a walkover.
Not at all.
By no stretch of imagination. And as his aunt says, I've heard her say that a few times, and, who am I? But she knows better than anyone else. Chris comes from a family, right, of freedom fighters. He comes from a family of activists. Right? He was brought up in a home where the awareness was nurtured. Right? He was brought up in the circumstances of where SMICO, was established. Mm. And I can't but give a lot of credit to those people, who set up SMICO, because building a nation, which we are all, in fact, part of, right? It's a relay race, mm-hmm. as our member and my friend Jesse always says. It's a relay race. I'm here today, I don't know how long I'll be here, and hopefully someone else will carry on that race. So we as a movement as well, because, whether it's the St. Martin Grassroots Movement or the Swaliga Grassroots Movement, right? One thing we have in common, love for St. Martin, mm-hmm. right? And we could have personal differences, and personal challenges. I mean, we're all human.
We are human.
You understand? But all of us really, love St. Martin and put a lot of energy in trying to reclaim our rights as St. Martiners. So I want to commend Chris, and wish him success, because what he has embarked on isn't easy, and he is experiencing that already, and I'm not going to get into that per se. One thing is clear. For now, he is not, a smooth, slick politician, right?
No.
He speaks from the heart, right? And whatever he says, I think we have to see it in that context, right? Because Chris did not create the problems that we have in this country.
No, he didn't.
Right? So we could jump on Chris and blame Chris for God knows what, right? I'm not going to do it, because Chris is a product of the circumstances that we're in. If we didn't have the circumstance that we have right now, that we as let's say as elder generation, of which I'm part of, if we hadn't created this type of situation, which is a crisis we're in, we're talking about a crisis. St. Martin is in the mother of all crisis, right? There wouldn't have been, a need, for a Chris. Chris Emmanuel is basically, you could say the embodiment of that longing for justice, and as such, I commend him, and wherever we can support him and people like him, we will do that.
Thank you for that recommendation and that nice view of Christopher. Mr. James, I had you here. I invited you on my show because I'm kind of like you. I don't like you, but I like you. And I read some things you posted, and it intrigued me. It intrigued me because you was talking about the situation, and as the St. Martin grassroots movement, who is very vocal and stands up for the people, you said this time the politicians on the Dutch side have to soak their blows. And I want to know what you meant with that, and why did you make that statement?
Did I really say that?
I read it, so.
You read it? Was my name under it?
Yes. I saw Leopold James. I hope it's the right Leopold James.
Once you see Leopold James, president of the grassroots movement,
Then
proud
it's you.
native St. Martiner,
Martiner.
with no apologies.
That's you.
Yeah, because whatever I think, whatever I write, right, I can defend.
You backed it.
under
That's
all
that
circumstances.
is why I call
period.
you here.
Yes, yes, I wrote that. I'm very glad I wrote it, and I hope it's clear. And I'm willing to explain it and to go in detail in terms of what I mean. But before I do that, I want to make it very clear, and I don't have to make it clear because it's clear in of itself already. We are in a crisis,
Yes,
on the southern side of the island, and at the moment, politically speaking, right? Big crisis, major crisis. We can do as if it's not the case. We all know we are confronting some serious problems. And I think it's very important that if you look at St. Martin today, I don't think that we as senior citizens, we as veterans, we as the elder generation, right, in general, so I'm not talking about individuals per se, but in general, I am not sure if we can be proud of what as St. Martin we are leaving behind for the next generation. I think collectively, again, as a group of elder St. Martiners, senior St. Martiners, yes, we have done a lot of good things, but we have failed this country as well. And we have failed our young people. We have left a St. Martin behind for them to deal with that is extremely complex. And the reason that it is complex is because we have neglected to deal with the real hardcore issues, right? We were so busy making money, right, that we did not want to deal with the aspects of really developing a country and building a nation. Because when you talk about building a nation and developing a country, if you want to do it in a genuine way, in a sustainable way, it requires a certain mental and psychological maturity. To start with, you have to be willing to ask yourself some serious questions. When we say, because many times we use certain terms loosely. Yeah, we want to break up from Curacao, we want to do our own thing. Yeah, we want to break up from Holland, do our own thing. We should get rid of the Dutchmen. Aren't we Dutch ourselves in terms of nationality? I mean, sounds good for the home crowd. On the global platform, it sounds primitive. It sounds immature. So we have not defined a number of issues that are important for us to build in a sustainable way. And as a consequence of that, right, we have allowed for the country to develop in a very unorganized way, you know, and with what makes it even more complex is the fact that we have become an open society where people come from all over the world with their own cultural notions, and it's not that we disagree with them per se, but if you have a country that's developing and you do not have a consensus, if you do not have a consensus in terms of who we are or who we want to be, if you don't know who we are, then we should realize it's important that we sooner or later define who we are. Because if you don't know who you are you developing the place for? You see? So, to summarize it all, we have left a tremendous complex situation behind for the next generation. And I think it's very unfair that we now, you know, leave the solution up to the younger generation. Now, being part of a grassroots movement that is focused on contributing towards a sustainable process, a sustainable nation-building process, I thank God that I'm alive today still. Because I think we still have an opportunity to try to help the younger generation, right, to be able to have a future. If we look at the political situation on the island, the southern side of the island at the moment, the politicians that are there, I don't want to waste my time talking about them actually, right? They collectively, again, maybe not all individually per se, but collectively, have created a mess. No matter what they do, no matter what motion they pass, because it's clear that they're coming together to pass a motion, right, to save their own hides. They are not coming together to pass a motion out of love for St. Martin, because then they would have shown that love from day one, right? So what they are doing is absolutely not genuine. One consequence of what's going on right now, and I don't want to go into details of that because I want to focus on solutions now. Fact of the matter is, whatever they do or whatever they do not do, one thing is a clear fact. There is a lack of trust and confidence in the body politic, period. There's a lack of confidence among the St. Martin people, among the residents of St. Martin, among all institutions of St. Martin in the body politic, as well as a lack of trust and confidence within the Dutch kingdom. Now, there are those who are screaming that the Dutch are outsiders, right? Check your passport. Just check your passport, right? And check your constitution, right? Then you'll realize what you're saying there ain't necessarily correct. Sounds good, emotionally. Rationally, it makes no sense whatsoever. Whether I like the Dutch or don't like the Dutch is not the issue. There is no way we, under the circumstances that we are under right now, not being independent, right, that we can completely get away from the Dutch, period. Right? And the situation is so bad in terms of how the Dutch see us. And don't tell me, right? And never bring a politician here to tell me that, because he will have a problem with me, right? That the Dutch too are corrupt. Because I know the devil too is evil.
Yes.
But that means nothing to me in terms of what is your responsibility. So don't even go there. As a matter of fact, while they are trying to say that the Dutch are corrupt also, I haven't heard any politician say that they are not corrupt.
That's true.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, the leader of government, former leader of government, and the interim, Prime Minister, Cyril Westcott, and the Minister of Justice, Dennis Richardson, they themselves, at a certain moment, give the Dutch the green light to come in. So, so our politicians have given themselves a motion of non-confidence, whatever. And what bothers me too is to see these hypocrites, right, all of a sudden now coming together, again, brothers in crime, come together, that's normal, right? Not out of love for the people, but to save their behinds, to protect their lucrative positions and interests, coming together, and then sending copies to the United Nations. Sorry? You? Right? So the point is, whatever they do, they could send copies to Jesus Christ. Right? Fact of the matter is, there's no trust in them. Worldwide, non-St. Martin. That puts St. Martin in a very awkward position. Whether you like it or you don't like it. It means, as a St. Martin, when you travel, especially young people, when they go to Holland, to study or whatever, right? They go to France, they go wherever in the world, they go there with a stigma. Again, it doesn't mean to say that Dutch people are the best of the best. No. They could be the worst of the worst. That is not the issue, right? The issue is, what impact is it having on us, and what are we going to do about it? So we have come to the conclusion that something has to be done for us to regain the trust of our own people in the very first place, right? And of the Dutch, also. And we have been very fortunate to have been in contact with many youngsters.
When you say we, you mean
the movement. Yes.
Okay.
There have been a lot of youngsters that joined the different political parties. And we always appreciated that, because you all have to do it, right? And we cannot condemn anybody which party they join, because they all have, their reasons and it's their choice, But what we are noticing is that across the board, and we have been approached by a number of youngsters who feel so disillusioned, betrayed by their parties and their party leaders, and it puts them in an awkward position, because they too become contaminated, by seen as by outsiders, and even here on the island, as, let's say, the new corrupt gang, right? So if they don't do something to present themselves otherwise, then they too would have destroyed their future career before they even get started. So we have said, listen, we belong to, let's say, the elder generation, and we feel a responsibility to reach out to those young people. So we sent an open letter on Facebook encouraging young people to come together, across all party lines, regardless of party lines. Because it's not that you got to go against your party. It's about protecting your own future reputation, one, and also contributing towards St. Martin people and St. Martiners in general, getting the opportunity to present itself differently. Because the stigma is out there that St. Martin is a rotten egg.
Yes.
Period. It's deep. And there's nothing that the current politicians can do to change that. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So we encourage the young politicians to come together. Come together, even if you stay within your party, nothing wrong with that. Because we are not setting you up against your party. But you should feel you have enough pride in yourself, enough pride in your own dignity, in your own credibility, right? In your own integrity to safeguard that. And in short, we got quite a number of reactions on Facebook. And I must thank all of those people because there are a lot of people across all party lines who responded favorably. Even we got responses from Holland, where we were recommended to start a process. Start a process in terms of bringing the young people together, bringing them together. Now, we are at that point now that we are looking in terms of how do we go about this. Because one of the things we don't want to do, because we feel young people should be able to determine their own future. We see our role more as encouraging you and make you realize this is your future. You should not let us mess up for you. You got to live it.
You made a point there with the young people, and judging from the response, you think now that the younger generation are tired. Most of them vote because my grandmother was for this but you think now their eyes have been opened and they're looking for something different now?
Yeah, I think that is a fact. And even if it's one person, we think we have the responsibility as elder generation to encourage them to empower themselves, because you're talking about helping young people empower themselves. You understand? It should not be so. Let's say I have a bad reputation, right? I don't think that it would be right for my bad reputation to rub off on my kids, right? That wouldn't be fair. I don't think it's right if the bad reputation of our, let's say, old guard politicians, right? If that automatically sticks on the new guard politicians. That's not right. And that is what we want to try to prevent, because they deserve, they deserve a chance to show themselves, So we have certain ideas how to go about it, but we don't want to impose our ideas on the young people. We want to first, we have to discuss the procedure internally as a movement, but one of the things that we are looking at is to see how we can bring the young people together across all party codes, across the island, not only the southern side of the island, the northern side of the island, because we are talking about basically helping create a new generation of St. Martin leaders. And the future of St. Martin is being united, period.
Mr. James, with the whole issue come up because of the thorough screening that Holland wants to do. What is your opinion on the Dutch coming in to do a thorough screening on the MPs, the elected officials here?
Well, again, I don't want to dwell too much on that, because enough has been said, and a lot of wise things have been said, and a lot of nonsense has been said. Look, we have to be very realistic. We are part of the kingdom, and what I find very cynical, I have to say this. The process of going towards separate status, that goes back quite a while on St. Martin. And I was one of those who was also very vocal in that process. Myself and our late friend, the great hero, I will call him, Eldridge Humperton, God bless him, bless his soul. He was an incredible person, right? Eldridge, myself, and Elko Rosario, we were the three main opponents of the separate status as the way it was being prepared. We tried to get on radio stations and God knows what to tell the people, be careful with these politicians, because the politicians, just look at their track record. Again, if you look at St. Martin, nobody messed up St. Martin people, our politicians. Not Carousel, not Hot, our politicians. When you look at building permits, you look at our politicians, period. So we were very critical of them getting more power under these circumstances. And we wrote a lot of articles, hundreds of articles, warning people, telling people it's not necessary because we can even strengthen the position of St. Martin within the Antilles. Because if you look at the situation in the Antilles back then, Claude Watty, the late Claude Watty, he was back then, the only parliamentarian, right, for a long time. And what was very interesting, at that time, St. Martin could have got more representatives in Parliament. It was Claude Watty who said, no, he's against it because a representation is not about quantity, he said, about quality. Because Mr. Claude Watty wanted to control the Parliament. You understand? So while we were blaming Curacao, it was Claude Watty who didn't want more St. Martiners because suppose they would have a mind of their own. And that thinking has continued, his thing has continued in his son right here in St. Martin, period. I mean, let's be honest. Yes? Anyhow, we warned the people that there are consequences breaking away from the Antilles as was proposed. And one of the things you heard our politicians say, yeah, we want to do we own thing. They never formulate and define who's the we are. Then they talk about getting rid of the middleman, meaning the central government, Curacao. Going directly on the Holland. Well, when you go directly on the Holland, and Holland itself was not in favor of it. Holland itself was not in favor of the Antilles. We forced the Dutch to abuse us. Yes? Why? Because the politicians just wanted that total power basis on St. Martin, period. So they could cut the deals and put the money in their own pockets. Right? One of the conditions was that Holland, and that's normal because it's a big country, basically is the kingdom itself. They stipulated that, yes, you could do your own thing, have your own autonomy to a certain extent, but we are responsible because you're not independent. We remain responsible for proper governance. That's their responsibility. And these jokers, right, they were so eager to get their position that they thought, well, we can wrap the Dutch around our fingers again as we are accustomed of doing, because that ain't gonna mean nothing. Let's sign off. Let's sign off, and then let's say responsibility of Holland for proper governance and whatever. When it comes, we're gonna buy them out maybe, right? So it isn't anything they didn't know in advance. They knew. So don't come now and try to rile up the population against quote unquote the Dutch. To basically protect your own hide and your own, personal, financial, benefits and positions, because that's what it's about. So for us, these politicians, they are trying to save their own hide. It's not that they are protesting the Dutch image because they love St. Martin, because even up to now, who we consider basically the biggest stumbling block to St. Martin's, our own politicians. Because they went and they pushed to get separate status. They came up with a constitution. The constitution says nothing about St. Martin's, nothing. What the constitution prides itself in is the rights of Dutch nationals. So in the constitution, they pride themselves of being Dutch. And they said everybody who got a Dutch nationality on the island, doesn't matter how they get a Dutch nationality, they have the same rights. Back then, they didn't think about St. Martin people. So don't come now, right, because the Dutch going to put you under a microscope, and rightfully so. Yeah? Rightfully. Because who you expect to put under the microscope? The thief himself? I mean, let's be honest. And when we talk about the Dutch involved, these politicians have all kind of international magicians, right, in their service to work on people. You know what I'm talking about.
Of course.
Yes? They are involved with all kind of foreign investors, bona fide or mala fide. So don't do as if it's a level playing field for St. Martin's. It hasn't been a level playing field for St. Martin for ages. That's true. Back then, it was the Italians involved. So don't come and say, oh, listen, if the Dutch not involved, it's only between us among ourselves. It's not true. We all know that. So, I mean, I don't want to go there yourself. I want to focus on the future. And the future for us is our young people. So we have, we have a certain idea what we should be helping our young people with. And one of the things is, before the program comes to an end, we would like to work on a program with these young generation politicians, whereby once the program is finalized, we can go to the people of St. Martin, and try to regain their trust. Because it's about building trust again. There's no trust.
Absolutely.
You understand? And we hope that the governor will be willing to play a role in that process as well. We also look forward to eventually having a delegation going to Holland, going to France, going to United Nations. Not out of weakness. When a delegation goes to Holland, it's not to beg the Dutchman anything. It's to confront the Dutchman. It's to tell him, listen, yes, we accept responsibility for what our veteran politicians did. We are not proud of it. If you're proud of what you do, that's your business. We are not proud of it. We want to do something about it, right? And we don't want you, and we're not going to allow you, right, to keep us hostage because of what
they did.
Our politicians did. So we want to send a group of young people to Holland to confront the Dutch, to confront the king if necessary, to confront whosoever in Holland, to tell them, listen, we know you trying to get at us, get at our politicians, and the process get at us. It ain't gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. You understand? We want to also meet with the Antillean students and young people living in Holland and in France, because a lot of them feel bad because they live among the Dutch and the French people, and they are affected by the reputation constantly being slandered. So we have a long way ahead, but we think it's very important, that young people themselves, seize that opportunity to define themselves and not let circumstances, not let what happened in the past, not let what our old guard politicians did, not let whatever any opportunistic Dutch politician wants to do define them. In life, it's important to define yourself. You see?
Mr. James, the a letter or whatever the MPs has drafted was being sent to the United Nations. Do you think, as a veteran and who've been around for all these things, do you think this is going to have an effect on the Dutch who are ready here to stop what they are intended to do? And what do you think about the situation of our honorable governor, Eugene Holiday?
Well, as I said, it's very simple, It's like when you are working for a boss. I'm sure you know that experience. It happens all the time. Let's say you're working for a boss, right? You're working for a boss, and you and the boss have issues, a lot of issues. At a given moment, you go to the labor office, right? And you could be right. You could be right. You know what the boss is going to tell the labor office? And the labor office goes along with it. If you're right, the situation is so poisoned, you can't work along. You can't work anymore. Meaning, in this case, the relation between the current leadership, right, the current old guard politicians in Holland will never get better.
Never get better.
Never. Whether Holland is forced to withdraw, it will, because, come on, let's be honest. If they don't get you one way, they don't get you
the other way.
That's
Sure.
And in the meantime, who suffers? The St. Martin people. In the meantime, who suffers? The young guard politicians that have a lot of ambition, who are very professional, who have good intentions for this country. Our students in Holland, our students in France, St. Martin people abroad in general, they are the ones suffering. You understand? That's what I'm saying. Basically, in life, it's important to be able to have a vision. It's important to be proactive. Don't wait for that outcome. We're not waiting for that outcome. You understand? We are going to be proactive in terms of trying to encourage young people. You chart another track. You charter your own track. Aggressively, respectfully, taking full responsibility for our country. Even going so far as saying and sign off, I will never get involved in corruption, and if I see corruption, I'll report it. I mean, we got to start again rebuilding confidence within our society And with the Dutch, we cannot, as long as we are part of the kingdom, continue thinking that we are going to benefit from having a bad relationship. It's not going to work in our favor. It's simple as that. You see? And I personally believe in whatever the Dutch do or don't do, that's their business. I'm going to confront them and tell them, here am I. You ain't going to define me based on how you define others. I'm going to define myself, and I'm going to tell you who I am. Yeah? So that's what we are about, to embark on. And we hope that, it will work. And we feel it's a responsibility that we have. Because we can't leave young people out there, desperate. Because they're wasting their lives in the meantime. You understand?
Mr. James, what do you see for the future of the southern part of the island so far? What do you see for the future of the young people?
Well, look, when it comes to young people, I've been a teacher for God knows how long. I've been director for God knows how long, right? And under no circumstances can I ever be pessimistic when it comes to young people. Never. Impossible. Whatever I might think personally should never reflect. On how young people see the future. It's my duty under all circumstances, to encourage them. To believe in the future. At the same time, part of that process is to be realistic. It's, not to make them believe that it's going to be
doom and gloom.
Doom or gloom, or it's a piece of cake. Because it's not a piece of cake, and why should it be a piece of cake? I mean, if you got enough intelligence and pride and dignity, do you want a piece of cake? No. I don't want a piece of cake. I want anybody to put a good fight before me, because I know the end result, I'm going to win. There are no two ways about that. You see? And that's how we try to empower young people, right? We try to empower young people by letting them know, listen, you are your biggest friend and your biggest enemy. Right? It's up to you to make that choice. Which part of yourself are you going to allow to determine, what you're going to do? So we believe in the future. And during this election in particular, Jesse's sitting here now, he knows that, as a matter of fact, just before I came here, I got 2 messages from 2 young, new politicians, who want to talk with me. And I think it's a great privilege, because I'm known not to be the nicest guy. You know that, right?
I know that.
You know that, right? I'm not the nicest guy. That's why they throw me out to the grassroots movement.
That's
okay. Right? But that's okay.
I know.
But one thing a lot of people see in me, for whatever reason, is I say what I have to say.
Straightforward.
Yeah. And if I'm wrong, I apologize. And I move on. You see, a lot of young people, they need people to be straightforward with them and honest with them.
Honest.
I get a lot of people, I have contact with a lot of people, and I love it. I really, really love it, because I have people that believe in the UP, for instance, and I tell them, by all means, I can't judge you, in terms of which party to believe. That is your choice, But also look at your own personal integrity, right? And weigh which is more important for you. That's a choice that I can't make for you.
Yeah, you have to make
You're going to make for yourself. But either way, there are consequences. And it's my job to, as much as I can, to let them know what the possible consequences could be. And then they have to make up their minds. And I love young people. I love them. I love the interaction. Sometimes I get people that throw rotten eggs in my head, so to speak. And I love it. Throw more. Because that's your right. And the challenge for me is to look beyond the reason that they're throwing the rotten eggs. You see, because young people today, the circumstances under which they're living is very complex.
It is.
We live, in an era that was relatively simple. We didn't live in a global world, for instance. When we grew up, our world was our village, at most, the village next door, so to speak. Now kids live in a global world. They see what happened in the world. They see people being beheaded, right? They see bombs dropping on innocent people. I mean, it's so complex. It is so difficult for young people. It's so difficult for them to stay on the straight path while they know what our politicians are doing.
That's true.
Because our politicians, they should realize, and that goes for me too, we live in a glass house.
Yeah.
You know, so it's good to say something out of one corner of your mouth, but young people see what you're doing. So it makes it difficult for them, very difficult for them. So it's our task to connect with the young people, to let them know that we love them in the first place. Meaning that if you do something wrong, we'll tell you.
Mr. James, a few months ago, I had you here, and you, just before elections, and you had a few young politicians, the young blood, and you endorsed a few. And me as a reporter, I interviewed some, and there was a statement made about standing firm and representing the people. And one of your choice politicians now is in, how must I say, in the hot seat now because Mrs. Romeo Malin have left now, where she isn't joined up and, you know, is stating about broad-based government. What I'm trying to say, I interviewed her personally and she said she's okay, she's not leaving. The young people always say where they smoke, there's fire. There was rumors and we had an urgent press conference, which was not. Now she has left and then it's for the betterment of St. Martin people. You made a statement that most of them are saying it's for the St. Martin people, but it's for themselves. What is your opinion on your candidate who you endorsed?
Okay, first of all, you know, I got to correct you. We did not endorse any particular, you know, let's say,
party,
young blood politician. We did not do that. We endorse the generation in of itself. We endorse all those young people, right? Because it is a movement, so to speak. We endorse that generation, you know, because we think it's necessary in the first place. You need new blood. And in the second place, you know, you have to, if you do not try to commend them and try to keep some kind of contact with them, right? You lose complete the opportunity to be able to guide
That's
them,
true.
right? And in that process, there are no guarantees. There are no guarantees, you know. And I don't know why Leona did what she had. I have no idea. She contacted me several times, as a matter of fact, you know, to meet with her. And I said, well, whenever you're ready, you know, you meet with me. And the other guy, as a matter of fact, too, he called me this morning. You know, I'm open. I'm going to talk because I want to know myself.
You want to know, okay.
I want to know myself. I mean, life isn't a bed of roses, you know.
Definitely not.
It's not a bed of roses. And you have no guarantee. But one guarantee I think you have. If you let's say, if you don't try, it's going to fail.
It's going to fail.
Right? And if you try, it might not fail.
Yeah.
So which choice you make? I'm going to try.
Try.
Simple as that.
So that's what you did. And generally now, the situation over there, are you in favor of the Dutch coming in or?
You come back to the question
Yes,
again?
because you didn't answer me correct. You didn't answer me what I want to hear or straightforward.
Listen.
Are you in favor? You know, there's talks out there, and the way I put it, you are my dad, I'm home in your house. You're telling me, Abigail, clean your room, Abigail, clean your room. I keep putting off. One day you go in and you just do a cleaning, and then I probably be crying out, I want that, but you gave me the opportunity. I didn't, so you now going to go in and make the place clean. That is what I'm saying. So how do you see this whole?
Well, it's not so much what I see, you know, it's what the Constitution says.
That's true.
I mean, listen, Samaritan people in general, too often, too much then, right, are reactive.
Not proactive, yeah.
That's why we're in the problem that we are today. We are reactive.
That is so true.
We never deal with the situation before it's before us.
Yep.
Yeah? So we always react. Reaction, that type of attitude, means that you are immature, period. That you are not ready. Being ready is that you don't have to wait till a rock fall on your house to realize, you know, before it starts to rain, etc., I'm bringing something to remove that rock. You understand? So, I mean, the Dutch have been here all the time. We are part of the Dutch kingdom. I didn't write the Constitution.
No.
I didn't sign off to the final agreements, you know, that our politicians did with the Dutch in the rush to get their separate status. I didn't do it. I mean, so you have to deal with the consequences of your own actions. and not at a certain moment, you know, suppose something didn't happen now. Suppose now, you see, one thing I can't deal with is hypocrites. And our politicians are hypocrites. Yeah, I say so. They're hypocrites. Yeah, because if the Dutch did not come down with these new measures, you won't have heard
Anything.
anything. Yeah? What I blame them for most of anything else is their refusal to define the St. Martiners and to defend and protect the rights of St. Martiners in the Constitution, right? So that whatever happens, we are protected, right? That should have been their very first act. They are the traitors of St. Martin people. And I remember very well that, and Jesse sitting there, he was there too, we make a presentation to that end once. And I wrote a letter to Mr. Roland Duncan, this great lawyer, yeah? Where we told him, before, yes, I'll challenge him any day. Before you sign off to this separate status, because if you look at the former Antilles, in the former Antilles, the Antilleans were defined. It was defined who was an Antillean, right? You're born Antilles, before that and that, whatever. It was defined. And the nice thing about being Antillean back then was, to start with, every Antillean island was mine.
Yeah.
I was Antillean. So if there's work in Curacao, let's say only Curacao getting the work, who cares? I go and live in Curacao, it's like the States. Why got break up for? Because politicians want their own little fiefdom? Curacao was mine too. Sable was mine too. Right? So that was hogwash. Yeah? We could go anywhere in the Antilles. Now we are restricted to half an island overrun by immigrants. In the former Antilles, as Antillians, we were protected, became first. I'm sure you remember all the ads in the papers that would say Antillians preferred. That was a law. Even we had preferential treatment before the Dutch, whose passport we carry. We were well protected in the job market and everywhere else.
That's true.
So we told Mr. Roland Duncan, please, we beg them, create a provision that the St. Martin people or the Antilleans living on the islands now, that they are protected. Because imagine you're going from one status to another status where you lose all your protection.
All the protection.
The politicians and the civil servants, they negotiated for months to make sure they didn't lose nothing. Their pension rights, everything was just transferred. But the people, they lost everything.
People are the one who suffer.
You understand what I'm saying? So for me, these people are criminals of what they did to the Antilleans and the St. Martin people. Because they themselves in the Constitution, they built up the Dutch. They didn't talk about Antilleans in the Constitution. They didn't talk about St. Martiners. They talk about the Dutch. They're proud to be Dutch. Then, how come you're proud to be Dutch no more? You see? And they allowed for the Dutch to have all kinds of backup, interference possibilities. They signed off on it. William Marlin was in such a hurry to make 10-10-10. Yes, William Marlin. I know that. William Marlin. He was in a hurry. Let's rush this thing off.
Yes.
Let's rush this thing off. We'll deal with the consequences. But don't drag us in it, right? And that's why we wrote this letter, right? Soak your own blows. Because when you're cutting your deals, and they cut deals, all of them cut their deals, they and the children.
Yeah, that's
I want that to sink in what I'm saying.
Yes. That was something being said.
They don't have no march. They don't pass no motion to involve St. Martiners in their deals. Why is the fuel cost so high on the Dutch side? Who controls the harbor on the Dutch side? You want me to say more?
Oh, yeah.
Do they come to us and say, well, hey, we pass a motion that St. Martin should become shareholders too? When last year was such a motion? So, do your thing. Do your thing. And we could do our thing.
But you're open to the young bloods coming for
100%.
But are you're not for the veteran politicians, if they come to seek your advice, you're not willing to, are you willing as a grassroots movement?
You think a veteran politician would sign off to say, listen, if I see corruption, if one of my family, whatever, I'm going to go to the prosecutor and report that. Just draw. You think they're willing to do that?
No. No.
So you give yourself an answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't believe in exclusion, you know. We believe in inclusion.
Inclusion, but
But the rules are going to determine whether you feel
to be in it
they.
or not.
Okay, all right.
So your last word, Mr. James?
Well, my last word is thank you. Thank you for having me, you know, on behalf of the St. Martin Grassroots Movement and our board members, you know, who I want to thank very much for trusting me and having confidence in me so far.
So far, you expect confidence to be gone?
One never knows, right?
Yeah, that's
One
true.
never knows, and, you know, because I'm not here for myself, on behalf of myself, you know, I represent them, you know, and again, you know, our main objective is to fight for the rights of St. Martin people, you know, to promote nation building and unification based on preserving St. Martin people, right? Making sure St. Martin people come first, and also based on including others with an added value.
Mr.
So,
James, I want to
again?
thank you so much for accepting my invitation, and I will have you back
Again,
because of the response you're getting already and this new
Yeah.
movement you want. I will have you back on an update on that. And I like you because you're outspoken, and I
Okay.
like people to be able to express themselves, and they don't have to have war. You understand? So that's why I like you as a person. I don't like you, but I still like you. But I appreciate
that's so nice of you.
appreciate having you
I
here.
like you for liking me.
I hope to have you back soon, Mr. James.
Thank you very much,
And continue fighting for, you know, transparency.
And I thank God for
and
life.
honesty.
I thank God for life.
That's
you know,
true.
because I really enjoy this. I really and truly enjoy this. You know, because I won't enjoy doing something that I don't believe
That you
in
don't believe in,
or that is negative. I believe what we are doing eventually is in the best interest of St. Martin people and the best interest of all those who love St. Martin. And basically, and I would like to talk about that in the future, you know, because we feel St. Martin can play a role in the region whereby we help empower the entire region without the whole region having to come to St.
To
Martin.
come to St. Martin. That's good.
See?
Yes.
But that's for next time.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for having me.
There you had it, another interesting conversation with our guest, Mr. Leopole James, President of the St. Martin Grassroots Movement. Thank you for viewing. Until next time.